Welcome to Layout Techniques. My name is Alexander, and today we're going to talk about different layout techniques, including Flexbox and CSS Grid, of course, because we couldn't talk about CSS layout techniques without those. Now, before we do that, though, we're going to introduce the media devices. The very purpose for responsive web design is to actually fit different kind of devices. It's going to be responsive to the kind of device it's on, or even it can also be responsive to the size of your browser window. This is important, of course, because it makes things easier to view for the user and easier to use for the user. So, what kind of media devices are there? Of course, you already know a couple of them, like desktop, mobile, tablet, and so on and so forth, laptop, And these are the most common ones. These are the ones we are adapting for in this course. But we need to talk about what's different between those. What is actually the difference? Is it only that they have a different size, the inch size of their screens are different? Or is there more to it? Then we're going to introduce two things called Flexbox, CSS, and CSS Grid. They are not fairly recent, but in the terms of CSS and development, they are very recent layout techniques. And we're going to talk about how we use them, and if one is better than the other, what they do, what their purpose is, and when they came. Now we're going to talk about grid systems. Grid systems is not CSS Grid. A grid system is something we use to divide up the real estate, for example, the screen estate, into easily dividable parts. So we can count and measure with ease. And there are many grid systems. We are going to talk about one specific, which is most commonly used. And we have media and container queries. As you may notice, there are two words in this agenda called media, and they don't mean the same thing, but they are addressing the same issue. We have media kind of devices, and then we have media for handling our CSS. So we can style for these devices. Then that's called a media query. Then we have something new called container queries. We need to use in this course, and you need to know for the future, because it could be said even better in many, many cases than media queries are. Then we have CSS functions. So when we've addressed all of this, we're going to see that maybe media queries and container queries will give us a situation where we will write a lot more code than we might need to, because there are CSS functions that do a lot of this for us already. Or could it make it even more responsive to some degree? I'm talking about writing a lot of code. You're going to notice throughout the course that we are going to set values that are going to be constant, so not going to be changed. Or we're going to set calculations that are going to be constant calculations dependent on something else. But it's still the calculation, the algorithm used is going to be the same. So how do you store them? So you don't have to write them or recall them. You can just reuse them. Of course, we store these in variables. So we're going to talk about CSS type variables, which are called custom properties. This is a full agenda. And you might think, there's going to be a lot of theory ahead of us, but it's not. What I'm actually going to focus on throughout this lecture is trying to find practical examples that are fairly simple for each of those, that addresses their purpose and how you're syntactically supposed to write them. And that is wrapping up the agenda. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video, which will be about media devices.